Hey there, House here. Now I know at the time of recording it's a little bit late on a Saturday and you're getting me coming back from a Christmas party, but this is the best you're going to get me to get these video picks in before week 13. Now I know I missed my video last week, and for those that follow me on Facebook and Twitter, I posted those picks from last week on those. Since I missed making my video last week, you don't know how those picks went 2 weeks ago. Well, for that week, I went 8-6, and for last week, I went 9-7. So not banner weeks by any means, but it does bring my overall record to 98, 81, and 1, which continues to maintain my 54% prediction. Now, there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with being just above a coin flip. So let's get rolling into week 13, shall we? Oh, before we start, need a little hydration. Now, the Thursday night game already happened, and if you follow me on Facebook, I made my prediction before the game started, and I picked the Bills over the Patriots. So I've got that win out of the way. Now let's see how the rest of the week shakes up. We start off with the Bears versus the Packers, a really important rivalry for both fan bases, maybe not so much for half the fan base this year with the Bears rebuilding and seeing what they have with Justin Fields, and the Packers kind of on a downward spiral with the poor play from Rodgers. Going into this week, I really thought I was going to pick the Bears because I knew Justin Fields was going to be healthy enough to play this game, and how he has been running the ball over this last month before he got hurt has been untouched. And if anybody watched the Packers game on Sunday night last week against the Eagles, you saw how bad that rush defense was. The only reason I'm not picking the Bears is because Rodgers has this innate ability to manhandle the Bears most times that he plays them, no matter how poorly he plays before or even after those games. So because of that tradition in and of itself, I'm picking the Packers and Rodgers and his ability to own the Bears. Next up, we have the Falcons versus Steelers. I like the Steelers in this one. I don't trust the Falcons' offense by any means, and their defense is one of the worst in the leagues. And last week, on Monday, the Steelers showed that they can move the ball pretty effectively, whether it's Najee Harris or any of their other running backs. And Pickett has been playing better at the quarterback position. He does have a really solid young receiver in Pickens, so it's going to be a nice 1-2 combo for the Steelers for a long time to come. I like them over the Falcons. Vikings versus the Jets. I have been saying for most of the year that the Vikings are a very suspect, at this point, 10-1 team, I believe, because they had a bye week. There have been plenty of games where they could have lost, should have lost, whatever happened, but they didn't, and they are 10-1. Based on how the Jets looked last week with Mike Davis, they're going to be a tough out, and they're also a team battling for a playoff spot, so they're not going to be pushovers. I like the Jets here. Lions versus Jaguars. You know the rules. I don't pick the Lions. Haven't for weeks now. Sometimes it goes well for me, sometimes it doesn't. The Jaguars played well last week and came back to beat the Ravens, so I like the Jaguars here. Eagles versus the Titans. Originally, I was thinking this game was going to be a little bit tighter, but then I remembered that A.J. Brown was traded from the Titans to the Eagles, and who doesn't love a revenge game? So I'm picking the Eagles and a big day out of A.J. Brown. Texans versus Browns. I was just talking about a revenge game. The Browns have been playing some slightly mediocre football most of the season. It hasn't been because of their quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. He has filled in phenomenally for Deshaun Watson, who was suspended for all of this season until this week, where he has been able to practice and is expected to make his Cleveland Browns debut tomorrow against his former team in the Texans. I like the Browns here. I think Watson comes out a little bit stagnant, a little slow. He hasn't played a game of football in almost 2 years, but he's going to manhandle his former team. Giants versus the Commanders. This one's going to be pretty tough. The Giants still have a good run game in Saquon Barkley. Their rest of their offense is still a bit suspect, even with this deep into the season. You don't know which Daniel Jones is going to show up. The Commanders have been playing pretty well under their quarterback Taylor Heinicke, plus their run game between Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. So they're a tough out, and I like them in this matchup. Ravens versus the Broncos. I would almost think about picking the Broncos because of how bad the Ravens have played, but then with factoring in how bad the Broncos have been, there's no way that anybody should ever pick the Broncos to win another game the rest of this season. I like the Ravens here mainly because the Broncos are just that bad. Go Ravens. 49ers versus the Dolphins. This one should be a pretty entertaining game. I figured if it was the 49ers of 2 weeks ago when they destroyed the Cardinals, then it would be the 49ers, no doubt, in an offensive onslaught. The Dolphins have a very high-powered offense with Tua and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I know the Niners have a good defense, but I don't think it's going to be enough to really stop this Dolphins team. So I'm picking them as underdogs going on the road, picking the Dolphins. Next up, we have the Rams versus Seahawks. The Seahawks are coming back down to earth a bit. Geno Smith has not been playing his best football. Fortunately for them, the Seahawks, is that the Rams will again be without Matthew Stafford, who's dealing with this concussion. There's some speculation that he'll be out for the rest of the season. So they'll more than likely be going with Bryce Thompson again, who is more of a running quarterback. So essentially he's a running back who can't really throw the ball. And that's going to bode well for the Seahawks team against the Rams offense that can't move the ball. Picking Seahawks. Next, we have the Raiders versus the Chargers. The Chargers are still trying to get fully healthy. I don't believe Mike Williams is going to be available for this game, but they have another week where it's still going to be Austin Eckler, Joshua Palmer if he plays well, DeAndre Carter, who played really well last week, and Keenan Allen, who returned to the offense a couple weeks ago and has played well since he's returned and been healthy. It's still a pretty high-powered offense without Mike Williams, and the Raiders are just too unpredictable. You don't know which team's going to show up and at what point. It took the game getting into overtime last week and a 80-yard touchdown run by Josh Jacobs for the Raiders to seal it. And they've had a couple of overtime wins, but you cannot continuously rely on that to be the case. You need to put teams away early and often, and the Raiders cannot do that. I'm picking the Chargers. Next up, we have the Bengals versus the Chiefs, which honestly should be a game that could be flexed to a Sunday night as opposed to what the Sunday nighter is. Not my call, but this one will be very entertaining. I assume it's going to be on CBS at 3:30. Bengals versus Chiefs, two high-powered offenses. The Bengals are expected to have Jamar Chase back, which is really going to help them out. The Chiefs, they've got Mahomes and Travis Kelce. There's not much more that they really need, but I think with this tough matchup, I like the Bengals in this one. The Bengals have won the last 5 of the last 6 matchups, or 4 out of the last 5. They've played them really tough. They're getting their number 1 receiver back, and they're going to give the Chiefs fits. I like the Bengals. Now on to the Sunday nighter that should be flexed out. It's the Cowboys versus the Colts. The Colts looked terrible on Monday against the Steelers. Matt Ryan started the game. He missed his first 5 or 6 pass attempts. He's immobile. He gets sacked a bunch. Jonathan Taylor is up and down with his performance, and if they're not going to have to, if the defense isn't going to have to worry about Matt Ryan throwing the ball or being accurate, then they can just jam the box, and Taylor's not going to be able to go anywhere. I like the Cowboys in this one. Their offense is just too good for them. And last up Monday night, we have the Bucs versus the Saints. Now, normally this is a game script where the Saints have Tom Brady's number and they can beat the Bucs, and they've done it in the past. But earlier this year, I thought that. I picked the Saints, and the Bucs beat them outright. Flipping the script on this one for this matchup, I like the Bucs here. Brady's been playing decent enough to win this game. The Saints are probably going to be rolling with Andy Dalton, and we have seen that he cannot win with any kind of consistency or regularity. I like the Bucs here. Well, there you have it. Those are my picks. Thank you for tuning into the House Report. If there were some selections that I made that you disagree with, please leave your own picks in the comment section. And lastly, to all my betting friends out there, remember, you win some and you lose some, but the house always wins. Have a good night.